You got to be right every single time. Every single time. Bad guys only got to be right once. That is a failure, is really the only way to put it. Complacency kills. Welcome back to another episode of the Debrief. Tonight, we are going to discuss the incident at the White House Correspondents Dinner. Myself, Eric Immesberger, retired ATF, joined by Destinee of Rudy and Company, my managers. So we just saw the video that everybody in the world saw yesterday and today, released by Jeanine Pirro, U.S. Attorney for D.C. And in the video, there's approximately 9 or 10 law enforcement personnel. And if you look at the very far rear of the video, you'll see our shooter enters into a stairwell door. And right behind him is a canine with its handler that does not go into the door after him. And then moments later, the shooter emerges, full tilt run. And what he runs through is the magnetometer section that's being disassembled by a few of the uniformed personnel. What did the shooter have on him, as later determined? First, in his hands, he had a Mossberg 12-gauge shotgun with an extended tube magazine. If it was fully loaded, it would have had 7 shotgun rounds in the tube and 1 in the chamber, a total of 8 rounds. He also had a pistol and 3 knives, a K-bar knife and 2 other dagger-type knives. So the video is fairly self-explanatory. He's immediately confronted by one uniformed officer, draws his gun, and fires at the subject. In the background of that line of fire are other law enforcement personnel. That's the Secret Service personnel that took the shotgun buckshot into his vest from the shooter. The shooter continues on, and by the official account, approximately 45 yards later, he is down on the ground, either tackled or he tripped, and he's placed in custody. No injuries to him. So you can see all the personnel moving in, but the bad thing has already happened. So if we look to overall what good happened here, is the first thing is that nobody in the administration was harmed. They were successfully evacuated. That's good. But what's bad is a Secret Service employee uniform was shot in his vest, and the shooter got past all of those persons that you see visible in that video. That's not good. That is a failure, is really the only way to put it. With that number of personnel that were standing there, and that a lone determined gunman, and we know from his manifesto that he was not afraid to die, he fully expected to die. We know from that manifesto he was targeting the president as his number one target, and as many of the administration personnel there that he could hit. Where was he ultimately put in custody? Near the top of a staircase that led directly to where the entrance to the ballroom was. So although he was stopped a floor above, and before he could get to that staircase, in mere moments, if he had not either been tackled or tripped, and also by the official account, he was not shot, he didn't suffer a gunshot wound, he would have made it to the ballroom entrance. Now, the amount of security at every access point into that ballroom, I do not believe there's a 0 probability that he would have been able to pierce inside the ballroom before being put down one way or the other. So that's good. And you can see we've put up the floor plan showing the location of where this happened, where the shooter ultimately was grabbed. In his manifesto, which public information is that he sent out 10 minutes before he initiated this attack, and he had a fairly good amount of criticism for basically somebody with zero training in the law enforcement world or protection world. A lot of criticism as to the security, that he said what he thought he was going to see, and then he said, I saw none of it. Nobody challenged me when I walked in with multiple weapons when I checked in the day before. The majority of the visible security he saw was outside the venue with the protesters. And he expected a tighter use of the magnetometers, which the one that he ran through was being taken down. So generally speaking, what went well and what did not. And at the top of the what did not go well is a member of law enforcement getting shot, and getting shot where you're injured or getting shot in the vest. Somebody was able to put a round on you, and nobody put a round on the bad guy. Now, if you look at the line of fire of that Secret Service person that was shot, when he fired his rounds, his first few rounds, the background beyond the bad guy were other law enforcement personnel against the wall. And if you look at the three that were standing, the middle person, the one in the middle against the wall to the right of that door, you'll see that person stumble almost as if he received some type of injury. Was he shot? Did he have a piece of fragmentation that hit him? Or did he just simply fall down? The investigation will bear that out. But that's a bad day all day long when the background is law enforcement or the public or anybody other than the bad guy. The chances of a good guy getting hurt is huge. So we've seen what happened. We've gone over the good, the bad, the very upper crust of that scale. If you consider this to be the fourth publicly put out there attempt on the president's life, we have Butler, the golf course incident, the attacker that ran through the gate at Mar-a-Lago, he was shot and killed. The Butler shooter was shot and killed by the counter sniper uniform division of the Secret Service. And this incident being incident number 4, where there was a dedicated attempt on the president's life. Very generally speaking, from having worked on some Secret Service details, worked on a few of the United Nations General Assemblies, there is a security plan that's put in place, a written security plan. It is extensive. It is extremely well thought out. And it's done by the group that's going to be in charge of that particular protection. Typically, it's going to be a posted duty if it's outside Washington, D.C., in conjunction with all the other Secret Service elements that are going to be there. That plan is reviewed and approved through several layers of successive management in the Secret Service. Now, on to what I think could be very helpful if this is not being done already or possibly put into play after this attempt number 4. I think would be very helpful is if there was a dedicated unit, such as the euphemistically called red cell units, meaning a collection of people from the agency, Secret Service, that prior to an event will look at the final submitted and approved security plan, and they will dissect it. How could we attack and defeat what's been put into play on this plan? And that team should be comprised of someone from the counter assault team called the CAT team, somebody from the shift leader, his upper people, somebody that's experienced that would be considered post standards, and the technology side of the Secret Service with their drone program that they've had to rapidly develop. And bravo to them for doing it. You put a red cell, very small team together. They look at the venue, they look at the security plan, and they come up with, how can we defeat this security plan? How would we pierce the outer perimeter? How would we get close enough to do an attack on the principal, the protectee? And if the security plan has already taken those things into account, successfully countered those contingency attempts, then bravo. But if Red Cell comes up with, hey, these are 3 serious lackings that your plan has, and here's how we would defeat your security plan with realistic means and methods, that then gets added to the plan. The plan is tightened up to include all of those potential attacks. It would only make the protection detail that much more successful in protecting their principal. At the White House dinner, the world got to see on that video, the video inside when the president was evacuated, the vice president was evacuated, the first lady, and members of the cabinet. Into action went the Secret Service counter assault team. The counter assault team is the razor sharp knife in the drawer, and rarely would the public ever even see or know that there was a counter assault team on station. Prior to the attempts going back to Butler, the only time I had seen a video of the counter assault team actually going overt was, I believe it was Panama with President Bush 1. And there was a protest where there were certain elements that they felt they needed to evacuate the president back to Air Force 1, and the counter assault team went overt. So that was really the first time I had ever seen a video of that. And then to present, we've seen it a few times now. And when they came out onto that main stage, where did they go? Between the president and everybody else. And that team, the skill level, the talent on that counter assault team is without equal. They are shooters. And anyone in that crowd that would have displayed a threat to the president, the vice president, anybody in the administration, even in the crowd of 2,000, 2,500 people, you would have seen accurate rounds put on the threat by that counter assault team. That is their job. And the talent pool that they recruit from to accomplish that mission, it's deep.
Eric, I have some questions for you, if you don't mind. You mentioned that the first thing that the team does, and I saw this blow up online and I asked you about it, so I want to make sure that I address it because there's a lot of crazy rumors happening online, specifically about how both Trump and Vance were removed from the situation.
You saw in Butler and also in this correspondent dinner video, surrounding the president will be Secret Service agents interlocking arms, and they literally are a human bullet sponge to protect the president during the evacuation. And that counter assault team was on station almost instantly between the president, the shift doing the evacuation, the shift detail, and everybody else that was in that room. So every principal or protectee, interchangeable word, has their own detail. The president has his own Secret Service detail. The vice president has his own Secret Service detail. The FBI director had his FBI protective detail, and so on it goes down the line of cabinet officials that were at that dinner. Each detail will be in charge of evacuating their protectee. And that is a well thought out, rehearsed plan. What are we going to do and where are we going to go? And what are the contingencies if door number one is a no-go? Where's the contingency where we're going to go? So when you saw Vance on the screen, Vance is a young man. He's a former Marine. And when he got the tap, hey, we're moving, he was out of that chair and he already knew where he was supposed to go. And his evacuation was rapid. The president is a big guy. He's a little heavier and older, and he's got his wife with him. And there's other officials on the stage. The first thing the Secret Service did was get him down and then move him out once the counter assault team was between the crowd / any other threat. And that was, things never move as fast as you want them to move, but they move in a very controlled hurry, especially if it's a gunfight. You can only shoot as fast as you can move and shoot accurately. And that was the best of the best that was in that response. But it was a choreographed, rehearsed, briefed ballet of how do we do the evacuation and where are we going to go? And then there are evacuation plans, medical evacuation plans. Do we have to now get our injured protectee from this location to a hospital that's already been identified, it's already been advanced, and most likely there were probably already law enforcement personnel, like that was their job that night. You're going to be stationed at these hospitals as a contingency. If a protectee gets removed to the hospital, you're already here. That Hilton was not a good location for a few good reasons. Number one, it's a ballroom that can seat 2,500 people. It is the lower level of the hotel. Now, in this incident, it was one lone, determined attacker armed with a shotgun, very limited amount of rounds, a pistol, limited amount of rounds, and knives. If we switch that to multiple attackers from multiple attack points, and if you then throw into the mix that an attack is precipitated by the use of a high explosive, either a backpack or a suicide vest detonated at a main security checkpoint, and I am positive that those contingencies are briefed, rehearsed, thought out, and planned for. But if you see on the video that we just watched, I'll call it chaos because the attacker went through the security checkpoint unharmed. If you put into the mix multiple attackers with M4, AR-15, AK type rifle rounds and a lot of ammunition, that would have been a horrible, different outcome. Would the protectees still be unhurt? Most likely, but there would be a lot of casualties outside that venue, meaning all the people that you see in this video. When we all became cops and brand new agents, there were a list of deadly sins that were drilled into us. And one of them is complacency kills. It doesn't matter if you have the comfort of having 10, 20, or 30 people in your immediate vicinity. A well-armed and motivated attacker can do a lot of damage. And especially if you have one that is not afraid to die, which is exactly what we had here. So if you look at the video, there is really only one person whose attention is focused on the attacker even before he gets to the magnetometer. The canine officer what has been previously put out is he followed the attacker to that stairwell. The attacker went into the stairwell, the door closed, and the canine officer chose not to further engage him. And when the shooter reemerges, he runs right past that canine officer unchallenged. The canine is not released. The canine officer did not put rounds in the bad guy's direction. So whether you're standing by yourself, you're standing with one other person, or you're standing with 20 or 30 people, there's no room for complacency. Closed doorways are a huge threat because we don't know what's on the other side of them. When the attacker went into that stairwell, that's a bad deal. Why? We can't see through that door. We don't know what he's doing, where he's going, none of it. And when he came out, the action versus reaction, if that Secret Service uniformed officer had not drew his gun, fired rounds, and taken a round himself in his vest, there's a huge possibility that that attacker might have made it to that staircase and actually gotten himself onto the level of the ballroom. There isn't a doubt in my mind that he would have been instantly stopped before he could get into that ballroom. But this is a business of you can't be close. That's the life of a Secret Service agent. Absolute perfection in everything they do. You're watching a stairwell door for 12 hours. You're going to be best friends with that door. And you have instructions, you have a radio, you have a weapon system, and your job is nobody gets through this door. You got to be right every single time. Every single time. Bad guys only got to be right once. And quite frankly, at a magnetometer station, let's think this one through. If you have a determined gunman that is armed with multiple guns, or let's just say one gun, he knows when he goes through that magnetometer, it's going to go off and he's going to be confronted. So what is the mindset of anybody working that magnetometer? You have to be prepared and expecting the threat is now discovered. The magnetometer goes off, and that's going to cause a reaction by the bad guy, but the good guy's reaction should have already started. This video is going to be played 5 million times at academies. They'll still be playing this video when I'm 100 years old. That's the traction that this video is going to get, because it's not often you get an attacker at the initial point of friction being confronted, firing and hitting a uniformed officer and having rounds put at him, and he didn't break stride at all. I'm actually a simunitions instructor, meaning less lethal training that we do. When we do a simunition training where we're going to actually be firing rounds in training at role players through, it's basically a round that fires a soap marking pellet. It's not going to kill you, but it's going to sting. Every single participant in that training is searched with a magnetometer wand and a hand search by somebody standing right there before you can enter the training area. Oh, I forgot something at my car. And you come back 3 minutes later, you're getting searched again as if it's the first time you're showing up. You come back from lunch, you get searched. Anybody that enters that training area gets searched, whether it's the 10th time that day they're getting searched, they get searched, because we're not taking the chance on somebody getting killed in training because they brought a real gun into simunition training. So the comparison I'm making is, why is the magnetometer being broken down? That should have been broken down 2-3 hours after the event ended. There's over 2,000 people attending this dinner. Somebody isn't going to I have to go back to my room. I forgot this. I have to, whatever. Are they going to be researched at a magnetometer? Not this one. It's being broken down. Now, there may be a very good reason that this particular one's being broken down. Maybe it's being broken down to be moved somewhere else. We're not going to know that. And how did the armed gunman get to that proximity to the ballroom? Did he come down an elevator and walk through the lobby? How? How did that happen? Again, given what's occurred already in the past, prior events, and that's part of the intel that you're planning for, how could that possibly happen? Have happened? We don't want to beat the dead horse, so to speak, but some things to think about. The red cell concept, if they're not doing it already, I bet they're going to be doing it very soon. So what do we say? To pull back the curtain, give you a little view into our world. Hit that subscribe, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of it. And most importantly, leave comments. We want to know what you think. And if you have subjects that you want us to cover on a debrief, we live for that. We always say, be smart, be safe, protect yourself, protect your family, and protect your friends at all times. Thank you.